The Google Pixel 10 Pro Fold is here, and I have been using it for about 2 weeks now. And while this is an incredibly impressive phone by itself, it's got a lot of great features, including the best of Google's Gemini and AI features, computational photography, a brilliant design, an excellent new gearless hinge that earns it the title of the world's first foldable with IP68 water and dust resistance, very good battery life. There are a few things about this phone that make me think calling it Pro is stretching things a little bit. So in this review, I'm just going to share what I have learned and experienced using this phone for 2 weeks as my daily driver. So let's get into it. Let's begin with the design of this phone. This is definitely one of the more unique folding phones thanks to its asymmetrical design where one side is curved and the other side is straight edge. It's also quite hefty at 285 grams. That is heavier than my iPhone 17 Pro Max, which I'm recording on right now. Subscribe if you want to see the review for that. It's got a beautiful matte aluminium frame that goes all around the edges, and the hinge itself is a polished aluminum. On the back, you get the signature squarish squircle camera bump that has the camera system for the phone, a matte glass finish, and a shiny Google logo in the middle. You've got a speaker grill on the top as well as the SIM cards tray. Those of us here in Australia still get SIM cards, which is excellent, but elsewhere in the world, you might be limited to eSIM only. On the bottom, you have another speaker grill, and I will tell you why that's important later, as well as a USB Type-C port. Obviously, it is a foldable, so on the front, you get a 6.4-inch display that is AMOLED with a 120 Hz refresh rate, and when you open it up on the inside, you get a 8-inch square display that is fantastic. Both cover and inner display get up to 3000 nits of brightness, which means you can use it perfectly fine in the bright Australian sunshine. On the sides, you've got the power button, which also doubles as a fingerprint scanner, and it is incredibly fast. As you can see, it doesn't even take a second to unlock. And of course, you've got the volume rocker, which is very nice and clicky. When the phone is closed, it is 10 millimeters thick, and when you open it, that shrinks to about 5.2 millimeters. I will say, though, that this is noticeably heavier than the Z Fold 7. The Z Fold 7 just feels a lot lighter and slimmer in the hand. It feels more like your regular slab phone. This does not feel like your regular slab phone. It feels like a heavy device, and you know that you are carrying something different. And it's also a little bit top heavy, probably due to this camera bump. It just feels like a lot of the weight leans towards the top whenever you're holding it, and I find that I'm often like putting this in my pockets upside down because of the weight of this camera. But the good thing is that this camera bump, unlike the Z Fold 7, this does not have any wobble when put on a table or flat surface, which is really great. One of the best things about the Pixel 10 Pro Fold is the new gearless hinge that Google developed that does not use gears, but a new cam design system. Don't ask me what that means, but what it does is that it allows this to be very smooth indeed. One thing that I always found challenging with the Z Fold 7 is that it felt really stiff. Just opening it and more so closing it, I always used to feel like I would have to apply a lot of pressure on the display to fold it, but not so with the Pixel. This one is very smooth. It's still not something you're going to do easily one-handed. You can do it. It will not be the best way, primarily because Google did not put a thumb well, a finger well that you can easily put your fingers in. I wish more foldables could put something like that on the side to just make it easier to open and close them. But as it is, you usually have to stick your nails into the gap to open it. But the other thing about the new design of this hinge being that Google could save a little bit more space inside the phone, so it has increased the battery capacity, which means better battery life. But more importantly, it's also the world's first IP68 dust and water resistant foldable. So you can confidently take this to the beach and not worry about sand getting all up in your crack and ruining the device. And because the Pixel 10 Pro Fold supports Qi 2 wireless charging, that means it's got magnets in the back, and so it will work with magnetic accessories like chargers, magnetic wallets. Google is calling it Pixel Snap. The rest of us will just call it MagSafe because Apple beat everyone to it. And it's interesting because the Pixel 10 line are one of the only mainstream Android phones that has G2 wireless magnets in them, something that the Samsung phones do not have. So that's a win for Google. So if you are someone who uses magnetic accessories, that's something to consider. Both the cover display and the inner display are covered with Gorilla Glass, which means they are very scratch resistant. I have been using this without a case for 2 weeks, and there is not a single scratch anywhere on this phone. I forgot to mention that the Pixel 10 Pro Fold comes in two colors. This one is the moonstone that everybody's enamored with, and there's also a jade option. But yeah, this moonstone looks really good. I'd say it looks really good, very classy, very pro. All right, so talking about the displays and the fact that this is a foldable. After 2 weeks, I can tell you on average, I spend 80% of my time on this cover display because it is just perfect for quickly sending texts, answering emails, scrolling your Instagram or whatever. The reality is that even though you can open this out into a fold and get a bigger screen, it is a bit of effort and intentionality required to do that. And most of the time, it's a hindrance to just actually getting things done. I have found that I will only open this up when I have time and I just want to sit down and do some multitasking work, say doing some emails and banking at the same time and have my both apps open, or if I want to play some games, or if I want to watch YouTube on a bigger display. But for most of the time, probably even more than 80% of the time, I'm using the cover display, which does kind of defeat the purpose of having a folding phone, if you ask me. But I noticed the same thing when I was using the Z Fold 7. What that tells me is that foldables are not really a thing for most people. These are for very select type of people who want to do some heavy multitasking as well as a lot of media consumption on the go. Now, when it comes to multitasking, the Pixel 10 Pro Fold allows you to have split screen multitasking, so you can have two apps side by side, including doing ridiculous things like having Instagram and TikTok at the same time for some double doom scrolling. Unlike a Samsung Z Fold 7, which allows you 3, even 4 apps if you include a floating app, Google is limiting this to just 2, which some people might find a bit restrictive. But for me, I think 2 is actually enough. I'm not really sure why you'd want 3 apps open at the same time, but what is here is enough for most people. A lot of apps are not yet optimized for this fold, but at least all of Google's own apps are optimized. And I like that you can also create app groups. So for split screening, you can set certain apps together and save those onto your taskbar for quick and easy access. A lot of you folks who would want to buy a device like this would want to customize your home screens to your particular tastes. Unfortunately, Google's launcher does not really allow you much in the way of flexibility. The layout on your inner screen will be mirrored on the outer screen, except that it will just make those pages. I know some people don't like that. They would want to have a different layout for when the thing is open as opposed to when it's closed. I definitely found myself wanting that. Of course, being a foldable means there are various specific flex mode type things, which means you can have the phone folded halfway. So in certain apps like YouTube, you can fold it and get your controls at the bottom while the video plays at the top. And you can just leave the phone seated on a tabletop or surface so you can watch movies or content like that. That also works in the camera, which allows you to do things like the made you look feature. So if you're trying to take pictures of kids, distracted kids, this can be really helpful. I'm a dad, I have kids. Well, they're a little older now, but when they were younger, something like this would have really helped me to get them to focus on the camera so that I can take a nice picture. Of course, you can use the rear camera selfie to take pictures using the higher quality cameras on the back, which is always great. But the reality is that it can feel a little unwieldy to hold the phone like that and also take a picture. You usually end up having your arm, stretched out arm, appearing in the pictures, which is a little annoying. But the truth be told, walking around with a tablet phone trying to take pictures, it's like those people who try and take pictures with a tablet and an iPad. It just yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Now, one of the coolest things about using a folding phone is actually gaming. A lot of games run full screen on Android foldables and giving you a bigger experience that really is hard to explain. You need to see it and do it for yourself. It just makes playing games on foldables so much more fun than your standard candy bar landscape thing. And what's even better is that, remember I told you about the speaker grills on top of the phone? Well, it turns out that you are actually supposed to rotate the device on its side, and then that will give you spatial audio. So it definitely sounds better in that orientation. And with the USB port being on the higher side, when it's tilted on the side like that, it makes using controller attachments all the more easier. It's important to note that not all apps are optimized for this form factor and especially for this aspect ratio. So some things will stretch out, some things will be cut off. There'll be different bugs, especially when you do something full screen and then you close it and go back to the cover display. Then you can't find some of the menus. All that will be polished with time, but this is the reality of Android. Overall, the software experience on the Pixel 10 Pro has been exactly the same as it has been on the Pixel 10 and Pixel 10 Pro that I've also tested. It is smooth, it's sublime, it's fast, it's responsive. Don't let anyone get in your head about the Tensor G5 chip inside here not being powerful enough, any benchmarks, blah, 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 blah. The reality is the way you use your phone is what matters most. And most people, like I said at the beginning of this video, are not doing fancy 8K Pro RAW editing on their phones. Most people are not playing hardcore competitive games on their phone. Most of you are like me. You use a phone for what a phone is for. And for those kind of use cases, the Pixels are just fantastic. They have enough power to do everything you want smoothly, quickly, snappily, responsibly. This thing has 16 gigs of RAM, which makes multitasking a breeze. Opening and closing apps, swapping apps, it's all very, very smooth and snappy. And on top of that, you get all the Google goodies baked into the software. So all the AI tricks and tips that are really helpful, things like the call screening to help you screen out spam callers. You've got Magic Queue, which surfaces relevant information at all times. So, things like calendar bookings and flight information. You've got the usual Google Gemini features for some seriously good AI. This thing is just a great phone to use every day, as with all other Pixels. Bottom line, this is very, very good software experience that I highly recommend to anyone. I will say, though, that the Fold specific features are not as good as those on the Z Fold 7. Samsung has clearly done a lot more work in that space, and One UI is just better for the folding aspects. But for everything else, this has it all. Okay, now one area where I am not happy and is the least pro thing about this phone, and that is the cameras. The Pixel 10 Pro Fold comes with a 48 megapixel wide camera, a 10.85 megapixel telephoto, and a 10.5 megapixel ultra wide. Basically, it has the same cameras as the base Pixel 10, which is why I question why this phone is called Pro, because it doesn't have the same new sensors and lenses that you find in the Pixel 10 Pro and Pro XL. Don't get me wrong, these are not bad cameras. Google has done a great job, as they always have, in using older, lesser hardware to produce some excellent results using their computational photography. But in saying that, compared to the Pixel 10 Pro and Pro XL, this falls way short. You don't get many of the Pro controls, and you don't even get the 100x ProRes zoom feature, which is a software AI feature and not a hardware feature, and I do not see why they could not include it in here. What I'm saying is that if you are a pro photographer, this is not the device for you. On the other hand, for the rest of us, the cameras on here are perfectly fine. Pictures are crispy, sharp, detailed with excellent contrast, lots of color. It's amazing what this thing can capture in the right conditions. Even nighttime photography is pretty good. I took a couple of shots when I was out and about in the town the other night with my wife and kids. Everything was captured very well. So if all you do is take pictures to share with your friends on your social media, it's perfectly fine. It does a great job, and it's hard to get a truly bad picture with this phone. That said, don't expect to be taking great video with this phone. This has always been a problem with Pixel phones. They are fantastic at still photography, mostly because they can use their AI trickery to fix up photos on the spot. You can't do that with video, at least not with the kind of processors that we have at the moment. I generally do not like taking video with this phone. I find, compared to the iPhone 17 Pro Max, that it just doesn't really capture great colors. The lighting has to be like perfect for it to get really good video. And even then, there's all these little micro judders in the video and just some odd artifacts that, it's fine if you're going to attach it to a message and send to someone, But if you are, say, a content creator who wants to try and do some videos for TikTok, and yeah, no, this just wouldn't. It's not great. And again, that's what brings me back to: is this really a pro phone? All right. Lastly, I want to talk about the battery life on the Pixel 10 Pro Fold. For me, battery has been excellent. I've been able to get through entire days with this phone, starting from about 6 a.m., taking it off the charger, and getting to bed at about 10:30 or 11 p.m., and it's got about 40% charge left in the tank. That is great. I have averaged about anywhere between 5.5 to 7 hours of screen on time on average consistently. And I think that's pretty great. Obviously, your mileage will differ because how you use the phone will be different from how I use the phone. You also get a 30-watt fast charging on this phone with the right brick and 15-watt wireless charging. It takes about an hour and a half to go from 0 to full. But the fact that it's got that G2 wireless charging on the back means you can top it up anywhere. It does get a little bit warm while it charges. Speaking of that, I haven't actually noticed the phone getting warm at all when doing most of the regular things, even with gaming. So it runs pretty cool most of the time. I haven't done anything that has made me go, oh, the phone is really hot. So that's a good one. In fact, it's only when I use wireless charging, fast wireless charging, that I have noticed this phone get noticeably warm to the touch. In a nutshell, battery life on the Pixel 10 Pro Fold is excellent. I have no complaints. This is an all-day phone. Oftentimes, it has been a 2-day phone for me, and that's great. That's exactly what you want out of a foldable phone like this, right? Okay, so that's it. After 2 weeks with the Pixel 10 Pro Fold, I like this phone, but it's far from an easy phone to recommend to anybody. And since you are paying $2,699 here in Australia, or about $1,800 in the US, that's a lot of money to not be getting the best of the best of the best. It's cool, it's beautiful, it's well built, it's sturdy, it's a joy to use, but after the time that I've spent with it and realizing that I want to open it less and less as time goes by, I don't think I'm one of those people who needs a foldable. And if you are on the fence and you've been thinking, oh, do I need a folding phone? Should I get a folding phone? I can tell you that probably you don't. Most people do not need a folding phone. Google wants you to pay a premium for this phone, but it is not the most pro phone that I have ever used. This has a lot more in common with the base Pixel 10, which, by the way, I absolutely love. That is one of the best phones you can get under $1,000, without a doubt. This is like having two of those smudged together. I applaud Google for what they have done here. The advancements in their engineering, build quality, and craftsmanship, the software. This is a great package. There's still a lot of things that Google needs to fix, especially in a foldable specific software features, to make this really a compelling use case. And they definitely need to improve the cameras on this. But if you love all things Google and you are invested in the Google ecosystem and you want a folding phone, you can't necessarily go wrong with this. But yeah, that's been my experience with the Pixel 10 Pro Fold. I know a lot of you may have some questions, so drop them down in the comments. I will be there to answer as best as I can. Thanks again for watching. I appreciate you stopping by. If you like this video and want to see more real down-to-earth chats about tech, consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.